Hello and welcome back to another Caldwell News video where we give regular updates on our church replant journey as well as fundraise for our ministry. Today we're going to be talking about this past month in the church, this past month in our family, and our most relevant prayer requests. And let's get right into it. This past month there was by far no bigger announcement, no bigger change than we have changed our name. We are no longer Heart of the Canyons Church Sunland Campus. We are now Purpose Church Sunland Campus, or Purpose Sunland. Let me explain. The reason me and Sarah are here in the first place is because of a guy named Daryl Spears. Me and Sarah were friends with Daryl and his wife Tracy because me and Daryl were in a church plant training program together. But before that program, about 2 years ago, Heart of the Canyons, which includes Heart of the Canyons Newhall, Heart of the Canyons Canyon Country, and Heart of the Canyons Sunland. Heart of the Canyons was under the leadership of Pastor Jim Ryan. And Pastor Jim and the church were thinking about taking on another Heart of the Canyons in North Hollywood. It was a dying church's campus, and they were trying to figure out what to do with their church, and they had started talking with Pastor Jim. But Pastor Jim was already friends with Daryl, and he knew Daryl wanted a church plant. So rather than taking on another Heart of the Canyons campus, Pastor Jim kind of handed off this church to Pastor Daryl for his church plant, Purpose LA. Then, about a year after that happened, Pastor Jim was retiring from his lead pastor position. And after much prayer and deliberation, they decided to hire Pastor Daryl to be the lead pastor of Heart of the Canyons. And if you're following with me, that means all of a sudden, Pastor Daryl, who was just a year into his church plant, now finds himself the lead pastor of a 3-campus church as well as his church plant. That was about a year ago, and since then the Heart of the Canyons churches have stayed Heart of the Canyons and Purpose LA has stayed Purpose LA. So it has really been just a matter of time before a name change happens somewhere. And they wrestle back and forth with whether or not they just make Purpose LA Heart of the Canyons or whether or not they change all the names of the Heart of the Canyons churches. And ultimately, they went with Purpose Church. And one of the biggest reasons why is they believe it's a more friendly name to someone outside of the church, someone who doesn't know Jesus. They can look at the name and immediately know you can find your purpose here. And after explaining all of that, I think you can understand why I've just been saying we're a part of a network of churches, because I didn't want to explain a lot of that every single time we brought up the church. And after all that explaining and all of the name changing, I am very thankful to say I'm the campus pastor at Purpose Church Sunland Campus, or Purpose Sunland. Also, just to clarify how we're structured, we are ultimately a Baptist church with Daryl in the lead pastor position, and then we have me and the other campus pastors, and we are a non-satellite multi-campus church. So we are still having multiple people preach on Sundays and trying to navigate how we can work the best together across all of our campuses. And obviously that's by far the biggest news that we have. Other than that, we've been really focusing on the Sunday experience here at our church, just little ways that we could make it a better experience for people that come and visit. We've done things like clear out this hallway where there was chairs and tables behind a curtain, and now it's much brighter. We gave away these green plants to our church members so it's more brighter and we have less to take care of. I've been focused on learning 2 programs, Planning Center, which is used to coordinate volunteers, and Pro Presenter, which the church uses for slides and music on Sundays. I am now the guy in charge for both of those programs on Sundays, and it's been a learning curve, but I've enjoyed learning those programs as well. And I would be remiss if I did not just highlight Sarah this past month in regards to working on Sundays. She has really been heading up the kids ministry here at the church, which has mainly been our kids these first 2 months, save a couple of weekends where someone stopped by. But Sarah has been working hard at learning the programs for the kids ministry and the curriculum that's used in the church as a whole. And it has just been our kids, but I know thanks to her hard work that we will be ready for when there are other kids coming to the church. And I am just so proud of her and the work that she has put in this past month. And speaking of kids, this past month in the family, a really cool thing that we've been doing is we've been doing ministry together more than ever before. And I've heard for years people talk about the importance of doing ministry together, because if you don't, the church has high potential to become something that is just stealing dad from the family, and there's high potential for your family to resent the church. And I think you still need boundaries in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if you do ministry together as much as you can, it's just more time with family, and your family begins to understand a little more about how working in a church can be crazy at times. But this has looked like me and Sarah just meeting and talking about the church far more than we ever have. And this has also looked like the kids just coming to the church, or the whole family coming to the church when I'm here. And it's just meant more time together as a family that we wouldn't have otherwise. And there's also this cool example of the kids helping me at this Halloween booth that we were able to do at a community event at a nearby park, where we were able to just run a booth and talk to people about the church. But Camden and Titus helped me for maybe an hour running that game. And yeah, it's been cool. We've been doing ministry more together as a family. And another good thing that's been happening in the family this past month is me and Sarah have been able to go on a few dates since our last video, and that has been fantastic. And before we get on to prayer requests, here's a few other things that happened this month that I forgot to mention. But I'm doing most of the filming for this video in this office that we used to share with the Spanish ministry that we rent to, and we gave them an office in the third building, and will be our primary office going forward. It's been nice. There's also this women's event for all of the campuses held at the New Hall location that Sarah played a big role in all the planning and decorating, and she was also on a pastoral wives panel that spoke, and we also had some women from our church turn up. It was awesome. And I also did lead worship and preach in one service in an effort to give our usual worship leaders a break, and it was new, but it was fun. Making It Happen hosted what they call a rummage sale on our property, but they take donations the whole year, and then they set up a thrift shop to both give to people and raise for their organization. It was awesome. And I also had the privilege to be the preacher on the 6th grade retreat for Village Christian School, where Camden goes to kindergarten. And it was just an awesome opportunity. I was stoked when the spiritual director asked me, and now a bunch of students call me Pastor Hudson. It's cool. And we were also visited by Grandpa and Grandma Smith. He fixed our floorboards, and she helped fix some pumpkins, but it was just awesome having them in town. And we were also visited by Uncle Nick and Auntie Anna. Awesome to have them in town as well. And we went to the zoo. And I think that just about does it. Back to Hudson with the prayer requests. Most relevant prayer requests, I might say number one, just wisdom, discernment, and diligence for both me and Sarah in all areas of our life. Philippians talks about living a life worthy of the gospel that we are called to, and we kind of feel a burden to do that in all areas of our life, with our resources, with leadership in this church, and especially loving our kids and being patient with our kids, pointing them to Jesus above all else. I would also say pray for Pastor Daryl and us campus pastors, trying to just bring everybody together, figure out how we can all work best together and feel like one church and not four different campuses. I would also say pray for the Bible studies going on at the group. There is a men's group that meets on Saturday mornings. There is a women's group that meets Wednesday nights, and Sarah's been going to that one. But I've also recently started a men's group meeting every other Wednesday, and a few guys have been getting together, and it's been awesome thus far. But please just pray that that would grow, and God would just use that to grow his kingdom at our church. And that just about does it for this month's Caldwell News video. Stay tuned for next month's video. Something exciting. We just signed a contract with a landscaper, so the whole place is about to look better, as well as come back to see the changes that we made for Sundays in order to make it a better experience for everyone at our church. And if you do want to stay tuned, I have actually made this YouTube channel public, so that means you can now subscribe, and if you want notifications, you can subscribe and hit the bell. And after what I talked about in last video, it's just better and easier this way for everybody to make it a public channel where you can subscribe and get notifications if you want. But that does it. If you would like to support us in our ministry, just click the link in the description to give, and be sure to select Sunland Replant Fund instead of General Fund. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.